Singularity is a game that was developed by Raven Software. It started development back in 2007 and was shown off at E3 in 2009. It looked radically different than the finished product. The animation in the E3 version was smoother than in the final release version. Enemies were more active and took cover more effectively. The cutscenes were shown off in a third-person perspective. There was a more cinematic feel, and the most noticeable difference for me would be the ability to wield 8 guns at once, instead of being regulated to the 2-weapon limit. However, at the offices of Raven Software, things weren't doing so good. Due to the game's original version being too taxing on the 7th generation of hardware, the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the PC back then, Activision, Raven's parent company, decided that they should scrap it and gave Raven an ultimatum. They had to complete the game and ship it within 10 months. It was finally released on June 10th, 2010. It was the last full game to be developed by Raven Software before they became a map developer for the Call of Duty games. It was released to positive critical reception, but only sold roughly over 600,000 copies worldwide. It suffered from poor marketing because Activision, according to a Eurogamer article, kicked it out of the door with so little support it made Universal Credit look like winning the lottery. The premise is simple. Back in the 1950s, the Russian government discovered a rare element that had strange effects on people, both good and bad. Scientists discovered that it had supernatural powers, and after an island exploded off the coast of Russia, an experiment there went wrong. It remained top secret for more than 50 years. That's where you come in, as Captain Nathaniel Renko. You are sent off to investigate the island after satellites pick up signs of distress. Upon crash landing on the island, you are quickly bombarded with an energy wave that sends you back in time to where you must escape a burning building, but not before saving a man from burning to death. When you are returned to the present by the power of plot device, you will notice that things have changed and that you have altered history. From here on, the game will have you focus on righting the wrongs you've done by giving you a super arsenal of weapons. You'll even receive a device that lets you control time. The Time Manipulation Device, or TMD, allows you to do all sorts of kooky things that you'd want to do in a sci-fi game. You can shoot a giant time bubble to freeze enemies and slow down the environment around you. You can age enemies to death and turn them to mutants. You can even pick up small objects like Half-Life 2's gravity gun and launch them like a projectile. To quote Kevin Van Nord from GameSpot, who needs a reason for all this? It's super fun. I especially love experimenting with different types of enemies. Since this is a sci-fi game after all, you will fight not only humans but mutants. Different enemies will react differently to your TMD's functions. Phase ticks will implode when you pump them with enough energy from your gauntlet. Zeks will slow down, becoming virtually immobile, while reverts will turn into time bombs and explode after a while. Though while having this OP weapon does make the game easy for the most part, don't get too relaxed. Every time you use your TMD, it drains a certain amount of E99, the same energy that you'll find on the island in the form of crystals. Very rarely this happens, but if you run out of energy, your only means of a melee combat, the TMD's impulse shock attack, is a horizontal beam of death. Once you're out of energy and out of ammo, you will be completely defenseless. Why couldn't the developers make it so that once you run out of energy, the melee attack becomes your knife again, or map the knife to a different button or something? Since your gauntlet's energy recovers naturally at a snail's pace, the only way to constantly stay one step ahead of your enemies is to search the island for E99. You will also be able to find audio recordings of people hidden throughout the game that does a good job of immersing you in this world. If it seems like I'm describing Bioshock or Shadow or Half-Life, then kudos, you've played a handful of popular video games before. I often joke to myself saying that this game should have been titled Similarity because of how similar it is to other popular games. It has upgrade stations scattered throughout that allow you to increase your gun's strength, ammo capacity, and reload speed, as well as many other character upgrades that I won't spoil for you. The game also has a multiplayer feature, but since this game was released back in 2010, no one seems to be playing it online anymore. Here are some of the following differences. In the original version, according to the trailer, you are sent off on an airplane to the island by yourself, whereas in the final product, you crash land in a helicopter. In the original version, the combat and story looked to be much more fast-paced as you acquire the TMD as soon as you crash land on the island. In the E3 demo, there seems to be a bit more lore as the dev team explains the way the that the Soul Leech, parasites that take over dead bodies of humans and turn them into Zeks. In the retail version, the only time you see a face tick or Soul Leech come out of an enemy is during a boss fight against a giant Zek. The designs of many of the enemies are different. Most noticeably, a boss enemy that you fight on a train is glowing with neon colors, whereas the same boss in the final build looks very drab, as well as many other enemies in the demo having glowing. The design of the weapons is radically different. The original build showed off realistic looking weapons, whereas the final version had the weapons looking a lot more sci-fi-ish. The HUD, or heads-up display, looked different. Your TMD energy was displayed on the center of the screen instead of on the top right corner. Also, there was no health bar since it seemed you had regenerating health instead of health packets like in the final build. The demo showed off an entire area that was not in the retail version of the game. In the E3 demo, they said you did not have to pick up anything because your E90 energy would regenerate by itself, whereas in the final product, you need to scour the area for TMD energy. As much as I like going along for the ride, the game lost a lot of its luster towards the end. Towards the final hour of the game, you're so overpowered that you pretty much have to try to get yourself killed. And the game's twist, if it could be called that, had me yearning for more. But at the end of the day, Singularity is a fun game that should not be overlooked. I only hope that one day Raven Software Activision realize the potential this game has and decide to franchise it. I emailed Keith Fuller, a former employee at Raven Software, about their decisions on the final version of the game. He went into detail explaining why many things had to be cut. He said that much of the lore that was in the demo may not have been explained well to the player in the final product. He told me that much of the game's original features, such as cinematics and voiceovers, were scrapped in their attempt to ship the game out in a rush. Their reasoning for removing the weapon wheel was a combination of technical and design constraints, as having too many weapons would allegedly break the game's design as well as make it difficult to trim down the PC version for consoles at the time. Back in 2011, there were alleged leaks about Raven Software working on a sequel. However, it is likely that those leaks were fake, as Fuller stated that he had no knowledge of a sequel being greenlit. He stated that most of the team would have enjoyed being given time to work on a sequel. However, original IP was already a near extinct animal within Activision by 2010, and Singularity's poor sales performance did not justify the risk of a sequel.